Russia says that Ukraine's spring offensive came and went, and no land was lost on the Russian side. But the Wall Street Journal this weekend basically published this whole big hug to Zelensky, where he allowed he in a 10-minute video basically says, we got him right where we want him.
And I love in this piece too, and I don't know if we'll play it, but like she says, and now the spring offensive is about to begin, what the world has been waiting for.
Well, she says we are on the eve of the spring offensive.
She said, what the world has been waiting for. What world do you live in, state-run media, that you've been waiting for this?
That you're hoping people will die and you're excited about escalation of war?
It's what the media is waiting for, so that they can make money off of it.
I'm interested in this changing rhetoric of the Wall Street Journal, and we're going to talk about this in a second. Later, he goes on to say, we don't know how long it will take. He says, we need like real concrete support from the European Union. Real concrete support, not just, I like this screen. He says, not just blah, blah, blah. No blah, blah, blah. He's done with that. He wants Europe to give them real promises, real security, real weapons, real plan. That's just the translation that the video gave. No blah, blah, blah. Not that.
So just to be clear, Europe, the United States, we haven't given them real weapons yet.
What we've given him, in his words, is blah, blah, blah.
Is blah, blah, blah. So he and Greta Thunberg are hanging out.
What?
Blah, blah, blah. That's her thing. That's her catchphrase.
Okay.
No more blah, blah, blah.
Okay. No blah, blah, blah from the West.
Yeah.
So all of the money that we've put up in taxpayer money has just been blah, blah, blah. And he wants no more of that. Now, what he's saying here is that the world has to choose. Either they give Russians visa and legitimacy as people. He keeps mentioning this visa program. Like, you cannot talk to Russians. You can't do business with them. You basically cut them off as people. Full on Russophobia, I guess. Full stop. Or you are all in Ukraine. You can't have it both ways. Now we have to choose. Kind of like Japanese concentration camp is what I hear from this, right? Like, you see someone Russian, can't give them a dollar, can't give them a passport, can't give them a visa, right? Is that what you're hearing from this?
Yeah.
Is that an awesome way to handle international conflicts between races? We should have learned that.
Take away their religion, take away their language, take away their books.
Yes.
Lock them up. Oh, and then also bomb them.
Right. Again, if he had his way, that's what he would have. But according to Russia, he's not going to get his way because this is how the spring offensive has started and maybe ended. We're not sure if that was it. It was a sort of blink if you'll miss it type thing. Russia says that Ukraine mounted an attack in at least 5 places. Here's what the Institute of War says about the fighting that happened. It has these green circles. If you can see that on your screen, I'm sorry, it's small. This is where the fighting intensified along the lines. And here is Russia's summary of how that went. Ukraine's army offensive attempt failed. Came and went, they say. They announced that the armed forces of Ukraine lost. Now, I don't want to minimize, because here is a number here of real deaths. 250 people died that did not have to, right? They say Ukraine lost more than 250 personnel, 16 tanks, 3 infantry fighting vehicles, and 21 armored vehicles. Here is from Russian state media on RIA's Telegram channel. This video purports to show Russia destroying Ukrainian equipment in this area. So did it start or did it? Or did it not? Did
it not? I mean, this is the question, right? So this is the question that was asked of John Kirby today at the White House. He stepped in. Of course, the heavy-hitting Jean-Pierre had to step aside so we could ask some tough military questions of this. And the room was actually pretty packed for an early summer day. Here's John Kirby. Did the offensive start or not? Give us a straight answer.
What is your understanding of whether the counteroffensive has begun? Has it begun?
I'm not going to be talking for the Ukrainian military. That's for them to speak to. And I think you heard them say earlier today that they're conducting some offensive operations, but I won't go beyond that. That's for them to speak to. What I can speak to is how hard we work to prepare them to be ready. So whether it's starting now or starting soon or whenever they decide to step off and whatever they decide to do, the president's confident that we did everything we could over the last 6-8 months or more to make sure that they had all the equipment, the training, the capabilities to be successful.
Got to be starting something, right? You got to be starting something. I said, you want to be starting something? You got to be starting something. Are you starting something?
It's too high to get over.
It's very good. I was waiting for that. Like, is it starting?
You love to get under.
I'm not going to say it. You want to be starting something? I don't know if it's starting. I'm not going to speak for them. This is a time when I won't speak for them. Today's the day. Otherwise, we always speak for them because we are literally running the entire operation there. So I don't know is a pile of shit. You are lying right to all of those reporters in the room that you don't know. We are running everything. Everything comes out of Washington and the intelligence community. You, sir, are full of it, and you're lying right to the American people when you say, we don't know, I'm not going to speak for them. I know they did some offensive stuff, but all I know is we got some weapons over there. That's all I know.
Okay.
You're a liar.
Yeah, I mean, they speak for them when it sounds good. Like, if it went well, we absolutely would speak for them, right? Oh, yeah, we did that.
Victoria Nuland last week on the show, we featured how she admitted we've been planning the sprint. We've been planning everything with them for 4 to 5 months. So you don't know anything? And people sit back and CNN, no one will push him on this. CNN will just run this crap. They'll have him on his they'll interview him and he'll just say the same stuff and no one will push him on this.
Okay, but let's watch this, a little bit of a changing narrative from the Western media, because I'm interested in this. Meanwhile, Russia continues to experience attacks inside its own borders. Here is reports today that 2 drones fell on a highway in this Kaluga region, which is just south of Moscow, the metropolitan area. There were also reports of more Ukrainian drones inside of Russia this morning, but no one was hurt. And there are reports of more attacks in the Zaporizhia area that we've been warning about. The nuclear power plant is there and everybody is worried. And Ukraine keeps stepping up those attacks. Now, Russian historian Gilbert Doctorow, I was reading his book this weekend, and he said this about the attacks inside of Russia just before the weekend. He says this is the spring counteroffensive. He says these attacks inside of Russia, this is it. It's the action, he calls it, of a spent military force which cannot engage the Russian armed forces on the battlefield. Evidence of Russian television suggests that day by day their advance west from newly conquered Bakhmut area is proceeding relentlessly. He says the entire line in Donbass is pushing back the Ukrainian forces, which have not brought into play their much touted Western tanks and top supplies, since they would be destroyed for lack of air cover and for lack of the munitions that the Russians have been systematically eliminating through missile strikes on weapons caches over the past several weeks. He says, meanwhile, the Russian talking heads are paying close attention to President Biden's fall on the podium yesterday during an awards ceremony and finding it utterly shocking that this senile creature holds the fate of the world in his unsteady hands. Now, what he's talking about is this tumble that our elderly president took this weekend. And of course, this is concerning not because, it's fun, not at all to poke fun, but because we see the sort of frailty of a man who is at the helm of this, who could stop it, right? But doesn't look like he's in control enough, not just when he moves physically, but when he speaks. I think it feels very much like we are children and we don't have reliable parents, right?
And he gets up and he points over to the ground like, oh, what's that over there? We all, what's that? That was that flat area's fault.
It's fine. We all trip, I do all the time.
Former White House doctor, though, today said, look, he's clearly a man who is not fit to be president mentally and physically. He doesn't know where he is. And he's leading us into World War III. So regardless of his politics or anything else, this is the guy who literally can call the shots for furthering or escalating a war into a war with Russia.
Yeah. Now, is Zelensky worried about Joe Biden? Maybe because he's old and frail? He says in this Wall Street Journal piece, he's more worried about him because he's been more supportive of him than President Trump was. Now, I think it's interesting that we're starting to see this admission that there has been conflict since 2014. This is something the mainstream media has sort of ignored for the last year and a half. And now last week, the Wall Street Journal had an editor saying that Ukraine has been fighting Russians since 2014. He's saying they were occupied, although they were occupied in those regions by ethnic Russians, which he said these were our people.
Well, I think he might be referring to Crimea, but yeah. Being occupied, Crimea.
Okay, but even so, talking about this ongoing conflict outside of Crimea is sort of a new narrative, almost like, it's been going on there for a while, that we have not seen admissions of. Now, this logic is flawed, though, because he's saying, why didn't Trump bring Putin and I together when he was in office? He had the chance to, but there was no conflict. But he could have, but we didn't have a conflict. It was strange. It doesn't follow, right?
Yeah, you're right. It's a good point, because he's saying basically, I don't know how Trump would have reacted because we didn't have a full-scale war. But we had conflict, and he didn't bring us together. He didn't bring us to the table. Here's the thing. The United States, of course, and others were trying to bring them to the table. There were people that were trying to bring them to the table, and they were at the table.
Absolutely.
So we had an opportunity to bring, they were sitting at a table.
Yes.
In Turkey.
Yes.
Talking peace.
Right.
And we stepped in and stopped peace talks.
Right. And actually, people who specialize in Russian history have been saying this for the last more than one decade, that there is no future in Ukraine without Russian participation. So this is not like, oh, all of a sudden we think those countries are intrinsically connected. But now, given that this spring offensive may have come and gone, this may be it. 250 lives lost unnecessarily. Now, would this mean the Biden administration can have a chance to bring Zelensky and Putin together? No, because the United States has specifically said they won't. Over the weekend, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken specifically, look at this headline, warned against peace. Can you believe someone would write this headline as something to be proud of? He's warning against peace. And the way that this argument plays out is we just can't let him have his way. Like, if my son thinks that he can cry after every meal to get a cookie, he's going to get, then we're all going to be screwed because he thinks he can get his way. This is the way this argument, like he's a toddler. Here is this quote saying, a ceasefire that simply freezes current lines in place and enables Putin to consolidate control over the territory he seized and then rest, rearm, and retack is not lasting peace. It will legitimize Russia's land grab and reward the aggressor and punish the victim. So again, I think it's worth looking at the map because the U.S. continues to warn us that Putin's just going to keep going. He's just going to keep taking over more and more of Russia, right? When we have a map of what Russia is trying to accomplish here, let's look at the map again. The live map from just taken a few days ago. The gray area here is where these borders now lie. These are the people who voted to become a part of Russia, who asked for Russia's help. And this is where Russia says they will stay. Are they lying to us? We don't know. But the West is telling us, no, they're going to just blow right past it and keep going. We don't know, right? We're being told that they will keep going like the Mongols. But by buying into that lie, we're being asked to sign off on people's death to continue to fight, to push them back. And you can see clearly with this map here, Ukraine is not going to push that red back. They're not, right? How is that possible? This is a Financial Times map that you're looking at now, which has Crimea as contested territory, the one we just looked at before. Again, I think it's worth noting that the United States has been lying to us about conflicts so often for at least the last 30 years. We have weapons of mass destruction, gas attacks in Syria. Shouldn't we be questioning this narrative about, Russia is going to keep going past those lines? Shouldn't we at least question it, whether you like the idea of it or not? Speaking of lies, this weekend, I was reading this article that I had not been aware of before, which was published in the New York Times. Look at the date on this article. September 11th, 2013. Look who wrote it. President Putin. The New York Times gave him the opportunity to make a plea against U.S. attacks in Syria before the Obama administration launched them. And it reads like a prediction of what would eventually happen in Syria. He's warning that the gas attacks may not have happened by the Syrian administration. That turned out to be true. He's warning that the United States aggression will reverberate in more terrorist attacks. That turned out to be true. I'm not advocating for his side of anything, but I'm telling you that this war in the Ukraine is based on a lie, and we should know better than to trust the State Department, which has been lying about wars repeatedly, and maybe just think there may be a possibility for peace here. That's what I'm saying.
It would be nice. And it's amazing that these predictions come true. I mean, it's amazing to look at some of these, these things that he said over the time, watch some of his famous speeches, read some of the stuff that he's put in this New York Times piece. I would encourage all of you guys to go read this piece because what he said about Syria was spot on.
Yeah.
And now we know the cover up at Duma, the fake, the fake chemical gas attack, of course, which has now been widely debunked and discredited. Aaron Mate has done an amazing job on this, debunking this. But
yes.
So yeah, I think it's worth, and to talk that you don't want peace, or you're not interested in peace. Like that's Antony Blinken's legacy. So he'll come home tonight at dinner. Honey, what'd you do today? I talked people out of killing each other. The 250 Ukrainians who died because of being thrown into the meat grinder for some pointless political war right now. That's exactly what we're facing.
Yeah. And so, the more I study into this, the more I realize, okay, we're not being told the truth about, Russia's intentions. And I know for a fact the United States continues to lie about wars in order to escalate. And so it's very confusing because the Western media continues to tell us that Putin is such a bad guy. And that it just doesn't calculate inside of your brain if you're someone who, follows Western media. So what I'm saying right now is we need to sort of stop and think, where's the nuance here that we're missing and people are dying while we're missing it.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.